Welcome to Lifing 101, a journey through life's experiences, challenges, and interpretations. An intriguing and soul-refining podcast that explores the countless twists of life. Get ready to be amused, enlightened, entertained, empowered, and inspired. Hosted by Tina C. Christian, your MC with the LPC, and guest co-host Lorenda McKinney, your MC with the PhD.
Welcome, lovely listeners, to an exciting episode of Lifing 101 podcast,
where we dive into life's little mysteries and offer you insights to help you lead a happier, more fulfilling life.
I'm your MC with the LPC, Tina C. Christian, navigating y'all through this journey up and down and all around on this emotional roller coaster we call life.
And I'm your MC with the PhD, Lorenda McKinney. So grab your favorite beverage, find a comfortable spot, sit back and relax while we embark on this restorative journey together.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening out there. So today we're talking about blended love and laughs, stepping into the world of step families. So we've been in the relationship series and we've talked about blended families just a little bit, as well as second marriages. And so we've had our statistics and prevalences, and then we had our guest couple talk about second marriages. And so now we're moving on to blended families a little more. We talked a little bit about it with the couple and with episode where we talked about second marriages. But for this, we're only really wanting to touch on like commonalities and things about blended families and step families. And we're hoping to have maybe a couple or two, married couple or two, to talk more about their world of step families and how they've used love and laugh to blend their families together. Blended family is when a couple gets together and they get married and then they bring their children together from previous relationships, whether they were married or just, in a relationship. But each partner has children. So when you get together, you bring your children together, kind of like the Brady Bunch.
That's what I always think. It's funny you said that because the whole time I was sitting here and I always go, when I think of blended families, I always go, you mean like the Brady Bunch? Because both people came to the family with their own kids.
Exactly. So that's exactly what a blended family is. Each parent comes with their children and they blend them and they become family. Yeah. So, but the dynamics of that type of family always seems to present some challenges because you have different type of family values that may be, coming together. You would like to hope that if you're with someone, you may have the same values, but people raise their kids differently.
They do.
People have had different types of environments that they've been raised in. So the children may be different. The lifestyles may be different. However, each blended family will present its own challenge, So an estimated 1 in 3 children in the United States actually live in a blended family. So that's just one of the statistics that we've learned through our research trying to prepare for this blended family episode. Another statistic is that 70% of blended families end in divorce.
And that is extremely high. That is extremely high. And it makes you wonder if it is the ideal of the blended family, because I myself don't have kids. I've dated people with kids, so I don't have that blended family, but I am a product of a blended family where my stepdad had kids and then it was already me and my sister. But I could be biased, but I feel like they were blessed because my mom is an excellent, like she never made a difference. If somebody was to just see us, they wouldn't be able to pick out who wasn't her kids and who were.
Right.
Because we were raised all the same. We were all dressing alike, all of that. It's pretty corny and goofy now, but we was the shit back in the day because we was all dressed alike and everything. But she always treated us fair and everything. So I have been a part of a blended family, but I have not been a blended family as in a relationship because I don't have any children.
Right. And with that being so high, you'd have to want to know and assume that is because of some of the challenges that are faced when you have a blended family. So I'd like to touch on some of those because some of the things that I've had my own personal challenges with my blended family, but in doing some research, some of the things that stuck out was that, like, for instance, different parenting styles. Like I said before, step parents may not agree on how to raise the children. They may disagree with the children, and you always are going to have another party. So say, for instance, each one of these parents come together with their children, but these children also have other parents.
Right.
So that's a variable as well, because that can play a role in regarding to how the dynamics of the family will or won't work. And even if you and your spouse have agreed upon something, there may be an outside party from a previous relationship or marriage or another parent that may not agree. So that may pose some challenges. I could see that.
Yeah, for sure. Because that person could be feeding into it from the outside, and then you got to keep reprogramming it every time they come back. So I could see that being a problem. And then just a general children just possibly saying things like, "You're not even my daddy." Like, I mean, don't think those things don't get said, or you can't, or you can't do that, or it brings that up. So it's almost like those have to be things that have to be discussed from the very beginning, because you got to respect the parents, whatever role they are, whatever level. If you're going to be in their house and using their resources and it's all good when it's going your way, you have to be willing to respect them at all times.
Right, because I can recall when you said that, an incident with my daughter early on, and my husband, disciplining her for something, and she was like, what'd she say? Something like to the effect that you're not my dad or something. And he was like, and you don't have to be here. And I'm like, correct. However, we're going to respect each other. And you got to get to that point where it's a mutual respect for all. Right. And it is a challenge because kids do feel that way. Like, especially depending on the age, if you get around a child when they're younger, it's probably not going to be as bad, I think, because they're still very impressionable and they haven't really created this,
formed too many opinions and everything.
So it's a little easier with smaller children and definitely with babies. However, when you get with teens and preteens and they've already, especially if they have a good relationship with their other parent that you're actually coming to be the step parent for. So if they have a good relationship with their dad and you're playing the stepdad role, then they may challenge you on a lot of things, And
a lot of times I think they feel like they have to be loyal to the parent that's outside of the house. They don't want to feel like you've replaced them, with the new spouse. So they feel like they got to be loyal to that parent. So they may be running back and forth telling things that don't even matter or don't even need to be told, but
right, because, although that is their other parent, certain things in regarding to that household need to stay within that household unless there's something that's not right. And definitely, we're not saying keep secrets. By all means, share that information if you feel like something is wrong or something's gone wrong. But triangulating or playing one parent against the other or trying to get your way, so you're telling this parent this or that, I can see all of those being challenges in a blended family. And then also the competition for attention, because the family members may feel unheard or disregarded, especially if, say, for instance, like if a child is coming over, that's not the home that they live in. So say, for instance, like my situation, my daughter lived with me and my spouse. However, my sons, they didn't live here. My stepsons, they didn't live here. So they would come and they would have their times, whether it would be weekends or, the summer or spring break or whatever. But there had to be some sort of feeling because they're not always here.
Right.
So again, they felt like she gets to always be here.
Right.
She has attention from their dad all the time. And then, so I could see that. And then my child probably feeling like, oh, now my mom's paying attention to them and they're taking away her attention from me. So some of that sometimes does go on. Yeah.
And I'm sure depending on how long it was just you and her and it wasn't anybody else, because it's immediate adjustment right there.
Oh, yeah.
At the minute that somebody else is added to the plate, it's immediate adjustment. Because when I'm used to it just being me and my mom and it's about us, now it's no longer.
Right. But I think one of the ways that I felt like you can kind of try to combat that is to make sure that all children are being heard and that all children are being treated equally.
Right.
And then making sure that they have a relationship.
Right.
Because if they have a relationship, it eases it all. If they're separate and they don't really get along, it makes it even harder.
Right.
Because now here you have them, not only are they competing for attention, now they're competing because they don't get along.
Right.
So I felt like making sure that my children had a relationship and identified each other as siblings, it really helped us with things like that. We didn't really have a lot of problems in regarding to that. We had other challenges, but that I feel like was kind of one that we really didn't have to deal with a lot because they did have a relationship. They were really close and they really identified one another as sister and brother, and they did things together. And so that helped.
Yeah.
But other challenges, yes, we still face.
Right. And if it's so cohesive and positive, you look at it as gaining. Like me, I would look at it as gaining a brother because I have a sister. So if you look at it as a positive experience and you're gaining and now you have more support, then you'll think of it different. As long as that outside parent is not throwing extra stuff in the background, because it can be a positive experience.
It can. And even though both my children and my stepsons had other siblings outside of our relationships, it still was, like you said, gaining.
Yeah, you're gaining.
You know, because again, did they actually live with them? My daughter did not. She had one, my older son that she lived with, but he was an adult at the time. So he wasn't a part of that blended family for that part. But she had never really lived per se with siblings. So this was really a major adjustment for her.
That would be a major adjustment to go from pretty much being the only child, it's all about me, to, who are these people? Now I got to share my mom like with extra siblings and with her husband. So I can understand that. My stepdad has been around like most of my life. I'm like in my high 40s. Y'all see how I did that? I'm in my high 40s. And he's been around for most of my life. So I don't really have a time where I don't remember him not being there. So that eliminated that part of it.
Definitely. And like I said, with my son and my daughter, they're like my biological son. They're like 10 years apart. So by the time I was with my husband, he was an adult. And so my daughter, it was just her and I. And so to come into a new situation with a blended family, it became a whole different situation, because now she went from no siblings at home to 2 siblings at home. And then it's like, again, sharing my mom with not just my siblings now, but her husband or my stepdad as well. So those were some of the challenges, like I said, that we face, but not in regarding to, like I said, the siblings, once they started to identify. So I think that's important, to make sure that they all feel heard, that they don't feel disregarded, and that they feel like they are family.
Yeah, and not to minimize or take anything from them. I think as long as they don't feel like an immediate neglect, like they're not getting something that they're used to, I think they're fine. It's just times when it does happen, when it's not that positive, and people do immediately start pulling things away, and then the kid feels like they're like fighting for attention or fighting for a spot.
And I can also see, like in the research, they were talking about younger adolescents, like the age from 10 to 14, them having difficult time adjusting. And then the conflict between them, the children, if they are younger, dealing with that as parents and coming together. And, they always say you don't treat other kids how you treat your own. But if and when you blend your families, you have to learn how to, even if you didn't come in. It was easier for me because I'm a child advocate, because I love all kids. I don't like them no more, but I love them all. But, it was easy for me because I was used to dealing with and working with kids, and I love kids. And I was just like that. I'm that person, but I could see it being a challenge for someone else if they had kids now coming into their home that were their stepchildren, that they were now their family, and they were having conflict with their children, trying to make sure that you didn't make a difference, or you weren't playing favoritisms, or that you weren't, giving your kids extra privileges or benefits of the doubt just because they were your kids. I believe it's very important for the parents to always be fair. Look at the bigger picture, make sure you're finding out all the facts. Don't be siding just with your kids like I know my kids. Yes, we think we do, and for the most part, I believe we do, but don't overlook the fact that your children may be doing something because they are feeling a certain kind of way.
And I think it is important to remember, if you're going to bring these kids into your life, treat them like your own. I don't have any kids, but I have dated people with kids, and I still talk to some of my ex's kids to this day. And if they're going to be around me, I'm going to treat them as such, or they just should not be around. Because when they're in your care, or when they're around you, that's your responsibility. And whatever happens or negative aspects come from being around you, that you're to blame for it. So it's a package deal. If you sign up for it, hey, it comes as a package. You can't just say, I want his fine self, but the kids.
Right.
Well, no, it's a whole package deal. And I remember when I dated one of my exes, one of the first things he said was, if you can't handle me having kids, then we can't date. And I was like, that is huge. Because a lot of guys wouldn't say that because most guys don't have their kids all the time. So they're just seeing them from time to time.
Right.
But it came out right away. And I could appreciate that.
Yeah, that's
and
good.
I could respect that. Exactly.
As it should, because that's one of the other things you do have sometimes, that step-parents may feel some sort of resentment because of the other kids. They may feel like, time or attention is being taken away from them. That's sad to say that we have to deal with something like that, but that's a reality. They may feel like that child or those children are taking time away from them. So you may have parents or step-parents that may be feeling resentful. So it is important when you start dating someone, even before you get serious or married, that you ask and know that, can you deal with kids? I have kids. Is this going to be a problem? Is this going to be a challenge? If we're planning on doing this, what are your concerns? What are the challenges you think we're going to face? Or what would you like to discuss or for us to resolve up front? Because it's too late once you get into the relationship.
Yeah, and that's how you know how important the kids are. And I think it's a shame because I know people that literally have kids and still mistreat the person that they're dating kids. And it's strange to me because they have kids. Yeah, and you're thinking, would you want somebody to treat your kids like that? Right. So I don't have any, but I'm not going to mistreat anybody's kids.
Right.
At the end of the day, I still have nieces and nephews and cousins, and I'll be ready to show up on front scene if somebody told me they was mistreating them or something. So it is important. If you're gonna, I'm telling you, if that's what you choose to do, whether you have kids or not, it's a package deal and you have to be all in.
Right, definitely. And family biases, family members may feel that certain family members are favored, over the other, whether it's the kids, the parents, those are just things that you may deal with because people may, even if it's not true, they may feel that way. So those are some of the challenges that I can think of in regarding to blended families and step families and trying to be a family.
Right.
And I think it's more important that we try not to think of them as step. I said that last week when we were talking about with the married couple with the second marriage. If you look at your kids and your family as family instead of step, I think it can kind of help with some of those challenges because if you're looking at it as those aren't my kids, or, that ain't my daddy or that ain't my mama, then it's going to pose a problem. But if you're looking and having the same respect and love for that child or that parent as you would for your own, then you could probably have or alleviate some of these other type of challenges.
Yeah, because if you go into it already being negative, it's going to be negative because that's the only way you can see it.
Right.
But if you go into it and you're like, we're going to make this work because this is the way it's going to be anyway, then you're going to get those type of outcomes. But if you go into it being negative, it's going to be negative because you're going to make it that way.
Right. And all relationships, they pose challenges and they can be kind of difficult. But if you want a healthy relationship and a healthy marriage and a healthy, family step or whatever, communication is key. You have to communicate. You have to make sure that everyone is being heard. Everyone is being respected and no one is feeling like they're being disregarded or disrespected. Right. So I agree. That's just very important that all kids and all parents are heard.
Yeah, and everybody feels included. Like everybody feels like they're equally important.
Right, because I think that's the main thing. If I had to think about it in regarding to my family and the blended family, I think as long as I communicate, I made it my business to make sure that I talk to the children like they were my own and like they are my own all the time, not just when there was an issue or something, just in general. Like if I'm going to text my son and say, hey son, I love you, I'm texting all my sons. Right. Hey son, I love you. If I'm worried about one, I'm texting all. It's like that. It was the same for me. Right. There is no, this is my son, that's my stepson, they my sons.
And I think it sounds like common sense, but you wouldn't believe number. It's not that common. I personally know women that knew that the kids existed. And it's not there. That cohesiveness is not there. Like your kid is the newest kid, but it's the most important kid. That's not how it goes. And so it seems like common sense. for good people,
Yeah.
but it's not that common. And you have to think of the kid that suffers in it because it's not fair.
Right. And I would like to think that as a mother, any woman,
you would think.
I would think that as a mother, you would want to treat those kids like your own and treat them good because you would want other people to treat
And that's what I was going to say. You don't know when it's going to be your kid in their place.
Right. Because, I mean, my daughter, she had a stepmom with her dad. And I would hope and pray that she would never mistreat her, which she never said she did. But that is just like my kid was a kid, too, that was part of another step family. And so never would I want her to go over there and experience something of her being rude or mean or, you know, treating her different or anything like that. That's not okay. But as a mother, you would think that you would treat kids good and fair. Right.
And it just seems so simple to do. Like, you just do the right thing. You just do what comes to your mind. And I hope what comes to your mind is the right thing.
Yeah. Blended families, they are hard, and they can be hard if everyone's not on the same page and if communication isn't taking place and everyone isn't trying to do their part. So, but when we were doing our research, we kind of found some stuff that people were saying, like in regarding to when is it time to step back? And so they gave like 7 signs that it may be time to disengage in a blended family. And so some of the things that we saw here were like feeling constantly overwhelmed, micromanaging type of behaviors, neglecting self-care, feeling resentful or unappreciated, struggling to set boundaries, neglecting your relationship with your partner, and feeling a sense of guilt. So if you're feeling any of these things right now, or you're noticing that these behaviors or whatever are taking place in your family, in your blended family, in your step family, I would encourage maybe even getting some family therapy.
Yeah.
I know y'all thinking, of course she would say that. But that is important. If you really love your spouse, if you really want your relationship to work, and or if you're a child listening, which I don't know if we have many kids listening or not, but if you are, or if you know your children are experiencing these type of things, you would want to make sure that they are feeling heard, and they may want to deal with some family therapy, to deal with some issues that they may be having, or some things to talk about. Hear your children out, hear your spouse out, have family meetings. I mean, those will be important if you're experiencing major challenges. I'm not saying you have to be the Brady Bunch, and I'm not saying you have to be the perfect family and having these weekly family meetings, but sometimes family meetings are important if there is an issue. Right.
And sometimes the kids that are involved look forward to that because a lot of people are not doing it. So they're like, hey, we tap in once a week. Like, we all meet up and make sure everything's good.
Okay, right.
So I do think that it can be beneficial, period. You don't want to wait until there are problems and then all of a sudden we're scheduling meetings. No, do it regularly so it won't brew into a big problem because you're literally tackling it every week. It gives them a chance to show up with their problems.
Right, because I can remember having a couple of informal type family meetings with just my daughter and my stepsons or my son, and just kind of sitting them down and having these conversations, you know. And then making sure that when I was giving out like chores and rules and stuff like that, or even disciplines, that they all were sitting there. Right. You're all getting this. So I didn't treat anybody different. You saw and heard exactly what I said to the next kid, you know. And even though I have my daughter, she'll come be like, well, Mom, this, that, and the other. And there were times when I had to say, well, technically, I'm not their mom. I didn't give birth to them. Right. And so some things I have to know my boundaries with as well, because they still have a mom. Right. I can't and I don't want to replace. I'm not trying to be your mom. Yeah. Even though I look at myself as your mom, I'm not the mom. Right. So I'm your bonus mom. Right. As V would say. So I'm that extra. You have too. You're blessed. Yeah, you're blessed. So I won't ever replace, nor am I trying to. However, I'm trying to basically supplement and give you something, you have the extra. Yeah, and I think that's important because you said you're not trying to replace, because for some reason, that's the first thing that kids think. You're trying to replace that parent that's not living in the house, and you're not trying to replace them. But I also want to offer you the same benefits as that parent. Otherwise, you're going to come over here and you're only going to have one parent, which is your biological parent. And so you're kind of losing, because then you have two parents, but they're not in the same household. Right. So, I mean, you have to look at it as a positive thing. You do. Really do. And like you said before, it's sad to think that some people men and or women,
right,
adults aren't doing those type of things when it comes to having these relationships and having blended families
right,
and stepchildren and things like that. Because sometimes, you know, the fact that the parents aren't together is an issue and hard enough for the kids.
right.
So especially if they've been like in a 2-parent home and the parents have gone through a divorce and now they're remarrying or with another, that's a whole nother animal.
It is.
So you have to be sensitive and empathetic to the situation and all parties involved and try to look at the big picture. And sometimes you have to take yourself and your emotions out of the equation so that you can even be, you know, fair and good for the kids, you know, because it ain't about you. I've said that to many people before. It's like, this ain't about you.
It's not.
Take yourself out of the equation and you would be fine.
Yeah, you've been raised. They're trying to get raised so that they can be good adults, adults with a healthy mental health. So it's important for you to do everything that you can contribute for it to be a positive experience. Of course, no home is going to be perfect because there's some things that you're just not going to be able to fix because some kids don't want them fixed. They just determined to have an issue with where there's not one. But the things that you can fix, by all means, you don't want to deal with things that you don't have to.
Right. But again, I think it's important. Communication is
with everybody.
Key. With everybody, with your spouse, with your children, with your stepchildren, even with the other parent, if you can.
Right.
Because I know there has been situations where some people are unapproachable or the relationship may have been bad or something. But I think it's important if you can to even try to have a relationship with that other parent because then you're co-parenting not only with your spouse but with them. It takes a village. And if you have all parents involved, it looks a lot better. It's a lot easier. It's better for the children. And sometimes we got to look outside of ourselves. It's not just about us. So don't be selfish in your thought process and thinking that, oh, well, that's something that. No, it's all about everybody.
It is. It's about everybody because if everybody is not willing to take a part in it, you're going to struggle because it's like, everybody, the people that are not speaking are going to feel unheard even though they're not trying. And then you have the people that are speaking but feel like nobody's processing what they're saying. So everybody just has to be able, and remember, communication goes both ways. It's talking and listening.
Yeah. So just a few other points that I want to point out on. We're not going to harp on this because, again, we want to get the input from real life families.
Yeah, real life situations.
But I do know, like, some of the issues and impacts of families that are blended. Sometimes, you know, you have to look at the child's well-being and the children's well-being because sometimes, as I just said, these type of situations are stressful. So not just for the child, but for the parents as well, for the married couple, for the step parents, for the parent that's not in this relationship. Right. It's stressful and new for everyone. So I think we need to look at that in the whole, you know, the dynamics of the relationship, but know that there's going to be adjustment periods.
Yeah, and I thought that was huge because it said like 2 to 5 years. And you just don't think that, I mean, even though these are lives that you are pretty much reforming, that just seems like a long time, 5 years to readjust.
Actually adjust. Yeah. But just think about it. It really depends on how long you were doing something else too.
Yeah.
Because if you look at it, say for instance, my spouse, he was with his children in that previous marriage, say for instance, 9 years. So then you come over here and you're with me. And now we're together. This is something completely different. Our dynamics are different. Our behaviors, our relationship, the way we interact, everything is different. This is all brand new for them. And vice versa for my child. I wasn't in a relationship at the time. But like I said, she was getting adapted and, you know, adjusted to her dad and his wife. But she had never had to deal really, truly with that with me.
Right.
So this was brand new for her. So yeah, it took her a while to accept and adapt. So you just really have to look at where they're coming from.
Yeah, you know what I would like to know? This is just out of curiosity. I would like to know if boys and girls adjust at different speeds. And the only reason why I say that is because boys, I think, are more, okay, this is what it's going to be. Where you had a girl that she's more verbal.
Yeah.
So I just wonder if boys and girls, if they adjust at different speeds. Like, okay, this is the way it is. I just have to get along with it.
But girls are more emotional anyway.
Yeah.
So I could see that being a factor as well.
Yeah, especially if you and your mom have like a close relationship.
Yeah. So just know that blended families are hard, and there may be even legal issues that you may be dealing with in regarding to like guardianship, custody, divorce, all that. So there's going to be a lot of different challenges, but without going into too much on this topic, again, because we really want to hear from some real families.
Yeah, we want to get it from the families.
Because although I have a blended family, I'm just one, and of course I'm going to have my own like little insights and opinions, but I want to hear from some other people as well. And I've dealt with a lot of different families and blended families, from being a child and family therapist and doing family focus in the community. And I've seen a lot of different challenges, but again, those aren't my stories to share, but I do want to hear from some actual real married couples and families. And so hopefully we can have someone here for you guys to talk about that and the different challenges that they face.
Right.
Yeah. Any other things you want to point out in regarding to blended families, or the struggles or the challenges, or even statistics or anything before we end this episode?
I would just say it's important when you come into a relationship, it is important to accept the whole package. And it sounds so simple until you're that person needing to accept the whole package. But you have to. If that's not your thing, I think you should decline.
Right.
I think it's very selfish to get in and think, oh no, I'm going to change it. I may say okay now, but I'll change it. And then at the same time, I think that if you are the parents, whether you're the newest parent coming in or if you're the biological parent, you have to take into consideration how the kids feel.
Yeah.
And understand that it takes time, and understand that it may take counseling, because so many times everybody go, that's not counseling worthy, because people want to dictate what's big enough a deal for counseling.
Yeah.
It don't need to be big enough a deal. That's the point.
The stuff for other people.
Right. You want to get to it before it's a big deal, before they're fighting everybody in the house and going to school crying because they're not the baby no more. Like I think it's important for the parents, all the parents that are involved, to realize this is a serious adjustment.
Yeah, because even when you said that, that made me think back, even with like your children, when you're having children, they feel a sense of like, a sense of loss. Like when you have another child, I can remember my son, even though they were 10 years apart, I remember him saying to my mom, and she told me, well, nobody's going to love me anymore, because he felt like, she's had a new baby. And so even thinking about that with a new family and blending your family, the children may be feeling like, well, darn, he may not love me anymore. She may not love me, or she's paying attention to the, you never know. And a lot of times they may not verbalize it. They may actually be acting it out and be like, what's going on? Well, that may be what's going on.
Yeah.
So minimizing their issues and saying it's not counseling worthy is not going to help anybody. So I really, truly believe that you have to really appreciate the complexities of blended families as well as the strengths, but then you also have to know that everybody's going to adapt differently, and it may take some people some time, and some people may have some sort of resentments. Some people may be fine with it. Some children may thrive. Some others may be struggling. So just be aware, communicate, and know that every family is going to be different, and there's going to be different dynamics across the board.
Right. And it's interesting that you said that about even when you bring home that baby and the kid is like, oh my God. So last week or the week before, I'd watched the reel, and the little girl was so upset. Like, she was so upset. She's like, you have me. Why did you need another baby?
Right.
And the comments to me were ridiculous. Oh, she's a spoiled brat.
Oh, wow.
But here we got an 8 to 10-year-old kid that has been the only kid all this time. Things are going to go through their mind. Yeah. Why did you need another one? You had me. Like, and why didn't I get some input? I wasn't there. I didn't get to say push the button. Like,
exactly.
So
and
people were,
important.
yeah, and I was just surprised at how many grown people were saying she was a spoiled brat, because keep in mind, all you know is this life. Parents can be more open and communicate. We're going to have a baby.
Yes.
Give me some warning. Don't hit me with a gut punch when it's already done. Ask them, how would you feel with a new sibling? Kind of lead up to it. And I was just surprised at the feedback where grown people were saying, she's just a spoiled brat. She's going to have to get used to it. Well, it doesn't work that way in their mind.
No. And that's why when my mom told me that my son said that, I was like, oh no. So I started bringing him in. It was like, this is our baby.
Exactly.
We're about to have a baby, and this is going to be your baby sister, and she's going to rely on you. You have to be her protector. You have to make sure, and I would encourage include him in things. Okay, come on, we're going to learn how to feed our baby.
Right.
We're going to learn how to change our baby. This is your baby, so here you're going to have to learn how to hold her. This is our baby.
Yeah, they have to know they're not being replaced.
Yeah, are we going to love on her? She's not replacing you. She's another member of our family.
Exactly.
Now.
This is some more love. Yeah.
So, but it's important to understand how your children feel when you're getting into any relationship. We talked about that kind of last week by talking about how when you get with people, making sure that you're comfortable with them, with your children, and vice versa. Making sure that your children are comfortable with them, asking them questions and getting their feedback. Why do you feel that way? What are your feelings?
Right.
Are you happy? Are you sad? Are you mad?
Right. And even if your mind is already made up, I'm going to be with this person, you still have to listen to the kids. Yeah. You still have to give them a chance to air it out.
Because half the time, like I said, sometimes these kids are out here cutting up and acting out. And people, I don't know what's going on. What's wrong with them? Did you ask?
Right. Until they break down and somebody hears it, that she only cares about the new family now.
Yep.
And you don't want that to happen when they in handcuffs because you don't know how serious the acting out is going to get.
Yeah. So definitely. But anyway, I have nothing else here. I don't want to beat a dead horse in the water. You guys.
That is it. Just make sure that you're being understanding when people are going through adjustments and don't minimize the adjustment.
Correct. So until next time, people, stay hopeful and stay curious.
Before we part ways, we invite you to share your own stories, thoughts, and reflections with us. Connect with us on social media, reach out through our website, or simply leave a comment on your preferred podcast platform. Feel free to leave us in voicemail at 816-607-1243 with any thoughts, concerns, or questions that you'd like shared on Lifing 101 or just answered or addressed. If you prefer to send us an email, feel free to do so by sending it to our website, lifing101pod.com, or send us an email to info@lifing101pod.com. Your insights and experiences enrich our shared understanding of this incredible journey we're all a part of. Please subscribe to this podcast and follow our website, lifing101pod.com, and find and follow us on your favorite social media platforms. Stay hopeful, stay curious, and keep embracing the vibrant, unpredictable, and awe-inspiring journey that we call life. Goodbye for now, and may your days be filled with endless wonder.